Have you ever walked into a room and felt the air shift? Not because of anything you said, not because of what you wore, but because people just looked. Their conversations didn't stop, not completely, but their focus wavered. Their eyes searched for something they couldn't name, and there you were. Capricorn, this has happened more times than you can count. You've felt it, the weight of eyes that linger too long. That scan, that question, that somehow recognize you before they've even spoken to you. But what if I told you this has nothing to do with surface level things? What if I told you they stare not because they see you, but because something inside them is reacting to your energy? You are a soul forged in silence, a force born from storms, a presence shaped not in spotlights, but in shadows. And when you enter a room, you don't simply arrive, you shift the frequency. People stare, Capricorn, because your soul carries a power that refuses to stay hidden. It's not loud, it doesn't demand, but it commands. Silently, profoundly, permanently. And here's the truth. Some stare in admiration. Some stare in discomfort. Some stare because you remind them of everything they gave up on. But none of them can look away, because your presence awakens something in them. And today, we're going to explore why. We're going to go deeper than image, deeper than personality. We're going to walk into the soul code you carry. The reason your silence speaks louder than noise, and your gaze reaches places even words cannot touch. So stay with me until the end, because once you hear this message, you'll never mistake their stare for judgment again. You'll recognize it for what it really is. Recognition. You've always carried this light. You just forgot what it truly meant. And today, you'll remember. Part 1. Your aura is unreadable, and that terrifies people. There's a certain kind of silence that surrounds you, Capricorn. Not the awkward kind, not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence. It's the energy of someone who does not need to be understood, to be felt. And that terrifies people, because most of the world is used to predictability. They can look at someone and read them within seconds. A laugh too loud, a posture too proud, a gaze that avoids eye contact. Most people walk around like open books, waiting to be read, desperate to be validated. But not you. You don't walk like a question. You walk like a statement. And your aura, it doesn't ask for attention, it commands it. Without trying, without speaking, without moving. You could be sitting in the corner of a crowded room, doing nothing, saying nothing, and still, people will keep glancing over at you, wondering who you are, what you've seen, what you know. But what truly unsettles them is this. They can't read you. They can't put you in a box. They can't predict how you'll respond. And in a world obsessed with control, that makes you feel dangerous. Because when someone looks at you, Capricorn, they're not just seeing a face. They're feeling a frequency. And that frequency doesn't match what they're used to. It's deeper, older, wiser. Your energy doesn't reveal itself like others. It guards itself. It tests who deserves access. And this is where the fear begins. People fear what they can't label. And your silence, it holds more truth than their words ever could. They look at you and feel confronted. Because in your presence, there's no performance. No mask. No act. Just this unshakable rootedness. You don't seek permission to be here. You belong with or without approval. That alone is enough to cause others discomfort. They've spent years crafting an identity that seeks applause. You've spent years building one that stands in the storm. So when they see you, they feel the hollowness of their own efforts. They stare. Not because they know you, but because deep down, they know there's more to you than what meets the eye. And that knowing unsettles them. Let me tell you a story. A Capricorn man, a quiet accountant. Never spoke more than necessary. He worked in the same office for 5 years. Never socialized. Never gossiped. But every time he entered the room, people stood up straighter. Not because he was intimidating, but because something about him made people want to measure up. One day, someone asked him, "Why don't you talk more?" He smiled slightly and said, "Because I don't waste words I might need later." That's KT. That's the kind of aura you carry. The kind that makes people want to be better. Not because you told them to, but because your existence reminds them that self-mastery is possible. So yes, they stare. Because they don't know what to do with someone who doesn't need to prove themselves. They don't know how to understand someone who finds power in restraint, who builds walls not to keep the world out, but to protect the sacred within. And the more they can't figure you out, the more they try to. And the more they try, the more you remind them of everything they're not. Life lesson: the power of being unreadable. Capricorn, don't ever apologize for being unreadable. That's not a weakness, it's your gift. Your aura protects your truth. And those who are meant to understand it won't need to stare too long. They'll feel it. And they'll respect the mystery instead of fearing it. So next time you notice the eyes again, don't shrink. Don't flinch. Just remember, they stare because you're the one thing they can't figure out, and the one truth they can't ignore. Part 2. The silence that commands a room. Silence has many languages. There's the silence of absence, awkward and uncomfortable. The silence of fear, trembling and uncertain. And then, there's the silence of authority. The kind you carry, Capricorn. It's the kind of silence that speaks first. Before you ever open your mouth, it walks into a room ahead of you and leaves behind a presence long after you've gone. That's why people stare. Not because you're loud, but because your silence has weight. Gravity. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. You don't need to stand in the center to be felt. You simply are, and that is enough. In a world addicted to noise, where everyone is trying to outshout, outshine, outperform, your stillness is unsettling, because it refuses to compete. It refuses to perform. It simply holds space, and in doing so, takes command. Capricorn, when you walk into a room, you don't need an entrance. You are the entrance. The room rearranges around your energy, not out of fear, but out of respect. People feel your discipline. They feel the battles you've endured. The ones that taught you silence is not absence of power, but the proof of it. When you speak, it's intentional. When you're quiet, it's never accidental. There's a message in your stillness, and the room can't help but listen for it. Let me take you into a real-life example. There was a Capricorn woman, a high school teacher in a rough inner-city district. Her students were loud, restless, unpredictable. But the moment she stepped into the classroom, they fell silent. Not because she yelled, not because she punished, but because her energy didn't allow chaos. She didn't threaten. She didn't demand. She simply stood tall, grounded, present. And slowly, they quieted. Because something about her silence said, "I've walked through harder things than this. I won't break. So don't waste your time testing me." That's the kind of power you carry, Capricorn. People are trained to listen to volume. But when you're around, they listen to vibration. They tune in, not to what you say, but to what you carry. Your calm doesn't read as passive. It reads as commanding. It's the kind of calm that says, "I've been through the storm. I've met the worst parts of myself. And I'm still standing." That's the silence that turns heads. That's the energy that stops conversations mid-sentence. That's why people stare. Because silence like yours isn't empty. It's earned. And deep down, people recognize that. Even if they don't know why they're watching you, why they're drawn to you, why your presence shifts the entire dynamic of a space. Something in them knows, this person carries weight. Life lesson: presence over performance. Capricorn, never trade your presence for noise. The world may try to convince you that visibility requires volume, but you were born to be noticed by presence, not performance. Your silence isn't lack. It's leadership. It's legacy. The room listens not because you shouted, but because your spirit knows itself. So the next time you walk in and feel eyes drift toward you, don't wonder why. Don't feel exposed. Feel seen. They don't stare because you're loud. They stare because your quiet speaks louder than most voices ever will. Part 3. Your eyes reveal 1,000 unspoken battles. There's a reason people avoid your gaze, Capricorn. Not because they're disinterested, but because something about the way you look at them feels like exposure. Like your eyes can see past the mask they wear for the world. And for a moment, they're not just being seen. They're being known. Your eyes are not just windows. They're witnesses. To the storms you've survived. To the nights you didn't cry out loud, but bled in silence. To the weight you carried while still showing up, day after day, as if nothing hurt. When someone looks into your eyes, they feel all of that. Not as a performance, but as presence. That's why people stare, and then quickly look away. Because something in them whispers, this person has seen things. This person has endured things. And yet, they didn't fold. Capricorn, your gaze carries history. It carries the chapters you never got to speak aloud. The decisions you had to make when no one else was watching. The strength you had to summon when no one was cheering. And when people meet your eyes, they meet those moments. Even if they don't know what they're seeing. They feel the gravity. They feel the stillness. They feel the kind of resilience that can't be taught, only earned. And that's why they keep looking. Because they're trying to decipher something their spirit already understands. But their mind cannot explain. Let me take you into a story. There was a Capricorn man who worked as a paramedic. Quiet. Measured. Focused. People barely noticed him in the room. Until the moment things fell apart. A young woman was brought in, unresponsive. Everyone panicked. Except him. He moved with clarity, with command, and with a kind of presence that made even the chaos respect him. Afterward, the girl's mother looked at him, really looked, and said, "I don't know why, but when I saw your eyes, I knew she'd be okay." Not because he smiled, not because he promised, but because his eyes told the truth. I've stood at the edge before. I don't flinch there anymore. That's what people see in you, Capricorn. Your eyes don't need decoration. They don't rely on charm. They aren't seeking attention. They're just telling the truth. The unspoken truth of every dark night you didn't let win. Of every betrayal you forgave without a thank you. Of every failure you used as bricks to build something stronger. And when others look into your eyes, they feel all of it. They feel the sacred weight of someone who didn't just survive, but transformed. You don't talk about the pain. You don't need to. Your eyes already do. But there's more. Your eyes don't just reveal what you've been through. They reflect something back to others. They act like mirrors. Some people meet your gaze and see hope. Some see regret. Some see what they once were. Some see what they're still afraid to become. Your eyes awaken something in them. A truth they've buried. A fire they've forgotten. A strength they stopped believing they had. That's why they keep staring. That's why they look at you like they're not just looking at you, but looking for something. Because your eyes are not just about what you carry. They're about what you activate in others. Life lesson, your gaze is sacred. Capricorn, don't dull your eyes just to make others comfortable. The fire you carry there is not for decoration. It's for direction. You are the reminder the world needs. That the deepest strength is often the quietest. That battles can be survived and even transcended. And that wisdom doesn't shout. It stares. Straight into the soul. So the next time someone lingers in your gaze, and you wonder what they're looking for, remember this. They're not searching for flaws. They're seeking truth. And you, Capricorn, you carry that truth. In your silence. And in your eyes. Part 4. The magnetic pull of someone who doesn't seek approval. There's something irresistibly magnetic about a person who doesn't need anyone's approval. Someone who doesn't perform. Who doesn't adapt to please. Who doesn't look around the room for permission to be exactly who they are. That someone is you, Capricorn. You carry yourself like someone who already knows their worth. Not because the world gave it to you, but because you've earned it in places the world never saw. And that's what people feel when they see you. That's what keeps them watching. Because while others are busy shaping themselves into whatever gains them applause, you are busy becoming unshakable. You move differently. You speak less but say more. You walk into a space and don't ask, "Do they like me?" Instead, the energy around you silently shifts and says, "There's something solid here." This is why people stare, and they don't always know why. It's because they're encountering a frequency they've forgotten. The vibration of someone who doesn't need to prove anything. That's intimidating. It's humbling. But above all, it's attractive. Because deep down, every human being is tired of pretending. Tired of performing. Tired of chasing validation that never feels complete. And when they see you, you become a silent mirror that reflects a truth they crave. There is power in knowing who you are. There is peace in not needing to be seen to be valued. There is liberation in not asking for permission to exist. Let me tell you a story. There was a Capricorn woman, a young creative who always sat at the back of the studio, never fought for attention, never tried to be noticed. But when it came time to present, she quietly stepped forward, said exactly what she needed to say, and left the room speechless. Other students asked her how she stayed so calm, so confident. She replied, "I don't speak to be liked. I speak to be clear. If that's enough, good. If it's not, I'm still good." That is the core of Capricorn magnetism. It's not loud. It's not showy. It's anchored. People don't stare because you're trying to be seen. They stare because you aren't trying, and still, you shine. This is the paradox of true power. When you stop trying to impress, you start to influence. When you no longer beg for attention, you receive more of it. When you don't need to be loved to love yourself, people find you unforgettable. Capricorn, you don't compete for approval. You build from within. And that inner foundation is what draws people in. Not because you're chasing them, but because they want to remember what it feels like to be rooted in self-worth. And yes, this makes you a mystery. To some, even a threat. Because the system most people live in depends on constant validation loops. Likes, comments, applause, reassurance. You live outside of that system. You get your confirmation from your integrity, from your ability to keep promises to yourself, from the quiet, private moments where you know you did the hard thing, even when no one was watching. That's rare. That's powerful. And that's why they stare. Life lesson: you don't need to be chosen to be valuable. Capricorn, your value isn't up for debate. It doesn't rise when you're liked. And it doesn't fall when you're ignored. That kind of self-possession is not common. It's not taught. It's forged. So the next time you feel that familiar weight of eyes on you, don't shrink. Don't explain. Don't apologize for not chasing approval like everyone else. Just remember this. You are magnetic. Not because you reach outward, but because you stand firm inward. And those who stare, they're not confused by your confidence. They're drawn to the part of themselves that wishes they had it too. Part 5. You're a mirror to people's insecurities. Capricorn, you weren't born to intimidate, but you were born to reflect. And often, that reflection is the very thing people spend years trying to avoid. You walk into a room, and something shifts. Not just because of your presence, but because of what your presence activates in others. Suddenly, they're not just seeing you. They're seeing themselves. In comparison. And that's where it begins. Most people live with a carefully curated identity. Polished. Approved. Filtered. But when they see someone like you, unapologetic, grounded, whole without needing to announce it, they feel exposed. Not because you judged them. Not because you criticized them. But because, in your energy, they remember the parts of themselves they've neglected. You become a mirror. And what they see staring back isn't always flattering. Your discipline reminds them of their excuses. Your consistency reminds them of their chaos. Your silence reminds them of how loudly they try to prove their worth. And your ability to walk through the world without asking for validation reminds them how desperately they still chase it. This is why some people react to you with discomfort. Not because you're cruel, not because you've done anything wrong, but because you represent the standard they once set for themselves and walked away from. In you, they see the road they didn't take, the courage they abandoned, the dreams they dismissed because they got tired, scared, distracted, or lost. And now, standing in front of them, is a person who didn't quit, didn't compromise, didn't bend. You. Let me share a moment. A Capricorn artist was once invited to speak at a gallery event. He barely said much, didn't mingle, didn't promote. But when the crowd walked past his work, a haunting piece, painted in grayscale, they paused. They stared, not just at the art, but at the man who made it. A woman whispered to her friend, "I don't know what it is about him. I feel like he's looking into everything I buried." He wasn't even facing her. He wasn't doing anything. But his energy had already done the work. That's you, Capricorn. You don't need to say a word, because your journey is written all over your presence. People feel it when they meet you. You've been tested. You've been refined. You've earned every layer of who you are. And that reflection causes them to do something they rarely do. Look inward. And it's not always comfortable. Sometimes, it inspires them. Sometimes, it irritates them. Sometimes, it silences them. But always, it makes them reflect. This is also why people project things onto you. They say you're cold, distant, or hard to read. But what they're really saying is, "You don't make me feel safe in my illusion." You challenge them. Without trying to. You remind them. Without preaching. And in a world full of superficial compliments, your presence becomes a cosmic interruption. You are the question mark. In a sentence they thought they had already finished. Life lesson: not everyone is ready to see themselves clearly. Capricorn, don't take it personally when someone avoids your gaze. When someone withdraws from your presence. When someone projects discomfort onto you. They're not running from you. They're running from the version of themselves you silently awaken. You were never meant to shrink for their comfort. You were meant to remind them that there's still more within them. And even if they resent it at first, somewhere deep down, they know you're right. So let them stare. Let them feel uncomfortable. Let them wrestle with their reflection. Because in that reflection, they might just remember what they're still capable of becoming. Part 6. You don't reveal, so they keep staring. There is a quiet art to how you move through the world, Capricorn. You reveal little. You hold much. And what you do show is intentional, deliberate, earned. In a culture where oversharing has become currency, your privacy is revolutionary. Your restraint is magnetic. And because people can't figure you out, they keep staring, hoping they'll catch something. A flicker of emotion. A subtle reaction. A glimpse into the layers you refuse to hand over freely. But you don't. You never have. Because what lives inside you is not for display. It's sacred. You don't withhold out of fear. You withhold out of wisdom. You've learned that not everyone deserves access. Not every smile is safe. Not every question deserves an answer. And so you choose your moments. You protect your space. You guard your essence with the strength of someone who's seen what happens when you don't. And that confuses people. They're used to quick confessions. They're used to open books. They're used to being able to read a person in under a minute. But you're a locked chapter. A sealed scroll. A soul encoded with stories that can't be skimmed. This is where the staring begins. Because when they realize they can't get easy access, they become fascinated. What are you hiding? What are you protecting? What don't you say? It's not just curiosity, it's obsession. Your mystery becomes a puzzle their ego wants to solve. But no matter how long they look, they don't get closer. They just get more entangled in your quiet depth. Because you were never meant to be figured out. You were meant to be earned. And that's something most people are not prepared for. Let me tell you a real story. A Capricorn executive, calm, concise, no nonsense. She attended meetings where others dominated the room with bravado. She never interrupted. She didn't compete. But when she finally spoke, people listened. Not just because her words had weight, but because they had been waiting, watching, wondering. What will she say? It wasn't just what she said. It was what she hadn't said all along. Her silence had built the stage. Her privacy had created the tension. That's the power of not revealing everything. Capricorn, your stillness is not a void. It's an invitation. But only to those willing to go slow. To sit with uncertainty. To earn trust without force. Your mystery filters out the ones who come with selfish curiosity. And it reveals the ones who are truly ready for depth. Because here's the truth. You can't be rushed. You can't be cracked open with charm or flattery. You open on your terms. In your time. And only when the other has proven themselves safe. This is what makes you unforgettable. Even to strangers. Even to those who never spoke to you. Life lesson. Your privacy is power. Capricorn, your depth is not something to apologize for. Your mystery is not a flaw. It's a form of self-respect. In a world where everyone is shouting their truth, you whisper yours. And in that whisper, you say more than most people do in a lifetime. So let them stare. Let them guess. Let them wonder what it is you're keeping inside. Because the ones who deserve to know, they won't need to force their way in. They'll earn it. And when that day comes, you'll share what's real. Not because you were demanded, but because you were finally seen. Part 7. Your energy feels ancient and royal. Some people are born with charm, others with beauty. But you, Capricorn, you were born with presence. A kind of presence that feels older than this lifetime. Older than words. Older than any story you've ever told. When people are around you, they often feel something they can't name. A pressure. A gravity. A vibration that doesn't match the room. What they're feeling is age. Not the age of years, but the age of soul. You carry the weight of centuries. Not because you've suffered more, but because your spirit came into this world with a memory. A royal memory. Your energy feels ancient because it is. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, the planet of time, karma, structure, and legacy. You don't just live in the moment. You carry timelines. You don't just enter conversations. You carry the wisdom of silence that was earned through lifetimes of endurance. That's why when you speak, even those older than you pause. It's not your age. It's your aura. You speak like someone who's built empires and watched them fall. You move like someone who's carried generations on your back. You stand like someone who was born to hold responsibility, not out of ego, but out of duty. And this is what people feel when they look at you. They don't just see a person. They see a presence they instinctively recognize, but can't quite place. It's the energy of royalty, not the flashy, modern kind. Not crowns and cameras, but the sacred, ancient kind. The kind of royalty that was chosen not because it wanted power, but because it could be trusted to carry weight. You don't demand attention, but you receive it. Because your soul reminds others of something primordial. Something deeply buried in the human psyche. The respect we feel when we stand before a mountain. Unmoving. Enduring. Holy. Let me tell you a story. A Capricorn woman worked as a hospice nurse. She didn't say much. But every time a patient neared the threshold between this life and the next, they asked for her. They called for her by name. Even patients she hadn't spent much time with. And one day, someone asked why. She replied, "I think they feel something around me. Like I've been here before. Like I'm not afraid to walk with them to the edge." That is what ancient presence feels like. And you, Capricorn, you carry that with every step. Your energy feels royal because it is deeply unshaken. You're not moved by trend or chaos. You don't bend for attention. You don't shift your shape to fit the room. Instead, the room adjusts to you. Even if people don't realize it, they instinctively defer. They choose words more carefully. They watch how you respond. Not because you've demanded reverence, but because your energy has earned it. And that reverence feels old. like something they haven't felt in a long time, like standing in a cathedral, like hearing the wind move through mountains, like sitting in the presence of someone who's seen more than she says. Life lesson: you were born to carry legacy, not just existence. Capricorn, your energy is not here to entertain. It's here to anchor. You are not here to rush. You are here to build what lasts. Your stillness is sacred. Your restraint is ancestral. Your very existence is a signal to the world. Some things cannot be explained, only witnessed. So when people stare and cannot explain what they feel, remember, they're not reacting to you. They're reacting to the truth inside you that feels older than time. You are not like the rest. You were never meant to be. And those who look at you with awe, confusion, or even envy, they're responding to the echo of who you were, long before this life began. Part 8. They feel you before they understand you. Long before a word leaves your mouth, Capricorn, they've already felt you. Before you make eye contact, before you've stepped fully into the space, your presence is already doing the work. That is the quiet truth of your energy. People don't wait to understand you. They respond to you instinctively, and often, without even knowing why. You could be standing at the edge of a room, saying nothing, doing nothing, but the air shifts. People sense something different, and they start to behave accordingly. Some go quiet, some get awkward, some feel comforted, others feel exposed. Why? Because you activate something before you ever try to explain it. Your energy walks in before your personality. Capricorn, this is the mark of deep spiritual maturity. You don't have to convince. You don't have to sell yourself. You don't need to project anything artificial. You simply are. And people feel that. They feel the history in your bones. They feel the discipline behind your calm. They feel the grief you've walked through and never let define you. They feel the boundaries you didn't have to announce. They feel the dignity you carry even when no one is watching. It's visceral. It's cellular. And it's unforgettable. This is why some people react to you with immediate admiration, and others with sudden discomfort. It's not what you said. It's not what you did. It's what you carry. You stir something in them. Maybe it's their long-abandoned standards. Maybe it's their secret longing to be more grounded. Maybe it's the echo of who they could have been if they had chosen the harder path, the way you did. And even if they can't articulate it, their body knows. Their spirit knows. That's why they stare. Let me tell you a story. A Capricorn man worked at a rehab center. He didn't lecture, didn't preach. He simply showed up every day, on time, with quiet kindness and quiet expectations. One of the patients, a man known for acting out, finally calmed down after weeks of disruption. When asked what changed, he said, "That guy, he doesn't even need to speak. Being around him makes me want to stop bullshitting myself." He hadn't had a single one-on-one session with the Capricorn staffer. Not a deep conversation. Not a breakthrough moment. Just presence. Just energy. That was enough. You see, Capricorn, not everyone in this world feels safe. Not everyone in this world has a reference point for real strength. For quiet strength. For integrity without ego. So when you walk in, you become that reference point. You remind people, not with your voice, but with your vibration. There is another way. There is still honor. There is still grace. There is still peace without performance. They feel that. And they remember themselves in your presence. Even if they don't understand it. Even if they don't acknowledge it. Even if they never say a word. Life lesson: you don't need to be understood to be effective. Capricorn, your power was never in being understood by everyone. It was in being felt by the right ones. You are not here to be decoded. You are here to be received. By those who can feel without fear. By those who don't need a resume to recognize your truth. So when people stare at you without knowing what to say, don't overthink it. They're feeling something real. And realness in this world is rare. It makes people pause. Let them feel. Let them wonder. Let your energy do what it's always done. Change the room without demanding attention. Part 9. The power of holding mystery in a world that overshares. We live in a world addicted to exposure. People broadcast every moment. They spill thoughts before they're formed. They showcase wounds before they've even begun to heal. They mistake visibility for value. And in all that noise, something sacred has been lost. Mystery. But not in you, Capricorn. You are the keeper of depth. You don't explain what doesn't need to be said. You don't share to soothe your ego. You don't post your pain to be validated. You carry your truth quietly, like a flame in the dark that needs no audience to burn. And in that quiet, you become unforgettable. This is why people stare. This is why they lean in, trying to see more than you've shown. Because you don't reveal everything. Because you still know how to guard what's sacred. And that makes you rare. And that makes you powerful. Because mystery is not the absence of identity. It is the presence of self-respect. It's the ability to withhold, to protect, to decide who gets to see you and who doesn't. It's not fear. It's discernment. And you, Capricorn, have mastered that discernment like a quiet art. Let me tell you a true moment. A Capricorn man worked as a consultant. He was brilliant but reserved. Clients respected him, but no one quite knew him. At the end of a major contract, a colleague finally asked, "How do you stay so calm? Don't you ever get overwhelmed?" He paused, smiled slightly, and said, "Of course I do. I just don't bleed in front of people who wouldn't stop the bleeding." That sentence never left the room. Because that's what mystery sounds like. Not coldness, but boundaries. And people who carry no mystery, who wear their wounds like badges, who depend on attention to feel alive. They feel small in the presence of someone like you. They feel transparent, exposed, childlike, because you remind them that privacy is a kind of power. They gave up too easily. Capricorn, you understand something most don't. Not everything sacred should be seen. Not every thought needs to be shared. Not every feeling needs to be unpacked on demand. Not every stranger deserves the key to your inner world. You've walked through too much to hand out your truth like it's free. And so you protect it. Not to hide, but to honor what you've built. That restraint is felt. And because it is rare, it becomes valuable. So they stare. Because they wonder. Because they wish they had the same strength. Mystery, in today's world, is rebellious. It says, "I don't owe you my story. I don't owe you access. I don't exist for your consumption. I exist for my mission." And that makes the room go silent. Life lesson, mystery is not distance. It's devotion. Capricorn, don't let the world shame you for your silence. Don't let shallow people guilt you for your privacy. Your mystery isn't emotional withholding. It's emotional mastery. You are not obligated to unravel yourself, just to be palatable for others. You are allowed to keep some things sacred. You are allowed to guard the treasure of your soul, like the gold it is. And those who truly belong in your life, they will never need you to overshare to feel connected. They'll sense the richness in your quiet and respect it. Let them stare. You are not hiding. You are protecting the power of who you are becoming. Part 10. Why the universe made you unignorable. There's something you need to understand, Capricorn. You were never designed to blend in. Not because you're arrogant. Not because you're flashy. But because your energy was assigned a role long before you even knew it. You were born with a frequency that can't be silenced. Not because it's loud, but because it's real. The universe didn't shape you in stillness and solitude, just to have you fade into the background. You were carved out of storms, polished through pressure, strengthened through silence. And that kind of soul cannot go unnoticed, even when you try. Have you ever wondered why people pick up when you walk by? Why conversations shift? Why people watch you longer than they should? It's not vanity. It's not projection. It's confirmation. The universe made you unignorable. Because your role in this life is not passive. You are a stabilizer, a mirror, a disruptor of mediocrity, a quiet guardian of truth. You are the evidence that growth is possible without performance, that strength can be silent, that resilience can walk without explanation. People stare because they feel something ancient in you, something trustworthy, something that says, I've carried weight. I didn't run. I didn't collapse. And I'm still standing. In a world that glamorizes speed and spectacle, you move with intention, with gravity, with a slow-burning power that whispers, I know who I am. I know what I carry. I don't need to shout. And that's exactly what the world needs more of. Let me tell you a final story. A Capricorn man lived most of his life quietly, worked hard, raised his family, showed up every day. No accolades, no spotlight, no noise. But when he passed away, the funeral home couldn't hold the crowd. People lined the streets, not because he was famous, but because, one by one, he had impacted lives in ways they never forgot. A word here, a gesture there, a silence that made others feel safe. He was a man of presence. And even in death, he remained unignorable. Because the universe doesn't measure greatness in volume, it measures it in vibration. And Capricorn, your vibration is unmistakable. You were chosen for a kind of visibility that can't be turned off. Not because of what you wear, not because of your title, but because your soul carries a light that cuts through pretense. That light was never meant to hide, and the more you try to dim it, the more the world aches to see it again. Life lesson, you're not here to be small. You're here to be a signal. Capricorn, every glance you receive is a nudge, a reminder. You were not born to be invisible. You were not built to fit molds. You were designed to signal others. That strength can be silent. That mastery can be calm. That wisdom can arrive without explanation. So when they stare, let them. It's not their judgment you're feeling. It's their recognition. They feel your assignment. Even if they don't know its name, you are not here to disappear. You are here to anchor, to guide, to embody truth. And that truth will always, always be seen. Conclusion, the light you carry is meant to be seen. Now you understand. The stares, the lingering glances, the quiet shifts when you enter a room, they were never random. They were reminders. Reminders that your presence speaks, even when your mouth is closed. Reminders that your energy moves through people, before they can name it. Reminders that you are carrying something this world has forgotten how to recognize. Real power. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that craves attention, but the kind that changes atmospheres in silence. Capricorn, you are a walking contradiction in the best way possible. You are still, but you shake people. You are calm, but you confront their chaos. You say little, but awaken much. You were not sent here to perform. You were sent here to reflect, to show others what's possible. When someone chooses integrity over impression, self-mastery over attention, depth over display, and yes, this will make you misunderstood. It will make you stared at. It will make you unforgettable. But that is your role. You are the mountain. You are the standard. You are the quiet reminder that greatness is still real. So the next time they stare, don't question yourself. Don't shrink. Don't try to disappear. Stand in it. Let your presence do what it was always meant to do. Remind the world of what it looks like when a soul is built, not bought. You didn't become who you are by accident. And the way people respond to you is not confusion. It's recognition. You carry light. You carry legacy. You carry truth. And truth demands to be seen. Capricorn, if this message stirred something in your soul, if it reminded you of the strength you've always carried, then don't let it end here. Subscribe to Zodiac Secrets Revealed right now. Because we don't just talk about signs. We reveal what the stars wrote in the language of your soul. And Capricorn, the stars wrote something royal for you. Let them stare. You were meant to be seen.